This is your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Wednesday, July 1. Barbados and the cricketing world are mourning the passing of one of the game's greatest icons. Legendary West Indies batsman Sir Everton Weekes died today at the age of 95. Weekes, who scored 4,455 runs at an average of 58.61 in 48 tests, is the only man to make centuries in 5 consecutive test innings. He was known as one of the 3 W's alongside fellow West Indies greats Sir Clyde Walcott and Sir Frank Worrell. Prime Minister Mia Mottley says Sir Everton will live on in memory as a Barbadian to emulate.
Sir Everton was one of the most brilliant men, with a turn of phrase and a sense of humour second to none. His life story represents the best of the Bajan journey. Committed and confident, stylish and classy, dignified and urbane to the very end, well-read and creative, a global citizen with Bajan roots.
The local media fraternity also lost top business journalist and publisher Pat Hoyos this morning. The Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers said Hoyos, the former editor of the Broad Street Journal and the publisher of the annual Who's Who in Business magazine, has left a lasting legacy in the profession in which he excelled. Prime Minister Mottley also described Hoyos as the consummate journalist who has left a solid legacy for remaining media practitioners.
An interviewer with a shark-like tenacity for persistence with his biting questions. A professional who was not afraid to take on anyone, whether that person was pauper, priest or politician. In fact, the Barbadian consumer of news and commentary would recall that Patrick was unrelenting in his questioning of political leaders and their operatives, regardless of the party colour that they wore. As founder and publisher of the Broad Street Journal, Patrick demonstrated with every edition that in the area of business reporting, few in the profession could outperform him.
In other news this Wednesday, there's little relief in sight for residents of St. John, St. George, St. Thomas and St. Joseph, plagued by persistent water outages. Authorities at the Barbados Water Authority says prevailing drought-like conditions have led to the shutdown of the Bomiston pumping station in St. John. While touring the facility this morning, Acting General Manager of the BWA, John Wanza, warned that unless there is a significant increase in rainfall this hurricane season, the water outages will continue. He, however, assured that the BWA is working to remedy the problem.
If we don't get any rains, then this condition here at Bomiston will persist. But part of what we're doing is trying to bring in water from somewhere else to help supplement the supplies in this area. That is why we are constructing, we start construction of the Vineyard project, which will be bringing water from Vineyard into these areas.
And the levels at Vineyard for now are reasonably good that you can do that?
Yes. But we have to put in a new pipeline from Vineyard right up to here. And we also have to construct a new reservoir at Mount Pleasant or Stewart Hill to be able to bring that water here. And construct 2 booster stations, one to pump water out of Vineyard Reservoir and one to pump water out of the Mount Pleasant Reservoir that we're going to construct.
Major changes are on the cards for vending and other areas of the micro, small, medium-sized enterprises sector in Barbados. Word of this from Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Commerce, Esworth Reed. He told a ceremony to launch a COVID-19 impact survey on the services industry in Barbados that a suite of comprehensive legislative reforms will be introduced to tackle a range of challenges.
These will include a Vending and Markets Facilitation Act that, among other things, would decriminalize and reposition vending and allow creatives to trade freely and without hassle, both within the physical and virtual marketplace. Now, before the end of the year, the ministry will also be taking before Parliament a national MSME Act that is intended to create the legislative space to facilitate expanding growth within the MSME sector.
Students at the Frederick Smith Secondary School pursuing cosmetology and barbering have a state-of-the-art lab to jumpstart their career in the beauty industry. With more than $60,000 worth in equipment contributed by No. 1 Beauty Supply, the classroom space has been transformed into a salon where students will be expected to demonstrate competence in line with regional standards developed by practitioners, industry experts, and employees in preparation for the world of work. Education Minister Santia Bradshaw says several schools have also implemented the program with the help of the private sector.
To date, there are 8 schools pursuing cosmetology and barbering: the Springer Memorial, Grantley Adams Memorial, Princess Margaret, St. Leonard's Boys, Parkinson Memorial, St. George, and Graydon Seeley, and now here at the Frederick Smith Secondary. Of the 8 schools, 5 labs were established through the support of private partners. Of the 5 supported by private partnerships, Frederick Smith Secondary and the St. George Secondary were fully outfitted by Mr. Mohammed through No. 1 Beauty Supply.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back. To regional news, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is adamant that Tuesday's protests in several areas were part of an orchestrated plan to destabilize the country. The police service maintains that protesters are using the weekend's police killings as an excuse to do what they want.
Compared to Tuesday's series of unfortunate events, Wednesday morning was rather peaceful. Deputy Commissioner of Police Jason Ford says the pleasant start to the day is attributed to the work his officers had done overnight. But commenting on the motive behind Tuesday's protests, he says they were orchestrated.
We were getting snippets of information since the night before that some type of disruption was planned for yesterday. What we did not have was the magnitude, the scale that disruption was about.
Addressing the fatal shooting of Ornella Graves, Commissioner Griffith says he will visit the family. The mother of 5 was allegedly shot by police during the protest in Beetham Gardens.
Yeah, I will speak to the individual, even though he said that what he intended to do to me and my family. I understand he is hurting, and obviously I would be more than willing to meet with him.
Commissioner Griffith says the orchestrating of Tuesday's protests could mean that warring gangs have been uniting.
It is quite possible. It is amazing that the majority of the 538 murders last year was based on one group trying to kill others in the other group. And what brings them together is the enemy of the enemy is my friend. And if that has brought two murderous gangs together to try to form some type of a strategic alliance, it says a lot about the character of those individuals.
However, he warned that any future attempts to destabilize the country will not flourish.
On the international scene, in Ethiopia, protesters and police have been killed in unrest sparked by the murder of a popular Ethiopian protest singer. More in this report from Reuters Television.
Dozens have been killed in Ethiopian unrest sparked by the murder of a popular protest singer, according to local authorities. Hachalu Hundessa, a former political prisoner, was shot dead on Monday night in what police are calling a targeted killing. Protests reflecting anger at Hachalu's death, but also at a sense of political marginalisation, subsequently broke out in the capital Addis Ababa and other towns and cities in the surrounding Oromia region, exposing divisions in what is the political heartland of reformist Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
What our enemies want is that we don't finish the work that we've started. That the Oromo people, for this reason, fight, are killed, that blood is spilled, and that the journey that we started gets derailed.
A regional spokesman said protesters and members of the security forces were among the dead, and that some businesses had also been set on fire. Police said 3 explosions had killed and injured an unspecified number of people. Hachalu and Abiy are both Oromo, Ethiopia's largest ethnic group, which has long complained of being excluded from power. Abiy's pan-Ethiopian political vision has been met with opposition from regional power brokers, determined to stake a claim for their people after decades of repression.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.